My name is Joe Peroni, and this is the Rise Above Project. And today we're going to answer the question, is there an emotional cheating epidemic? Now, if you're influenced by social media, life coaches, YouTubers, podcasters, and even lay people, your answer is probably going to be yes. However, is it true, or are we just going along with the latest social and emotional contagion that's based on outrage and no facts? How about this? Is it possible that we live in such an emotionally immature society and a profoundly sick society that normal behaviors are now being stigmatized and pathologized? And of course, it's possible that they're being monetized by a lot of greedy people in social media. So the first thing we have to do in order to answer this question, we're going to have to look at 4 different parts, I believe. So the first part we're going to take, we need to be able to define what emotional cheating is. And I understand that everybody's unique, and so everybody's going to have a different opinion, but I'm going to try to at least break it down to a point where most of us can agree on some of the basics. So that's number 1. The second part, we need to take a look at what the evidence says about how our country is being affected by social media. And the third part, I want to take a look at what was life like and people like before social media. And then the fourth part, I want to take a look at some surveys and some evidence that may or may not show that people are cheating emotionally or not. I'll leave that up to you. Let's start off with the first part. Let's look at some characteristics of emotional cheating. And again, I know people are going to have different opinions, but let's just take 3 that I think most of us can agree on. So number 1, sharing privileged information and feelings outside the monogamous relationship. Number 2, sharing a friendship, interest, mutual respect with someone that's outside the primary relationship. And number 3, something I like to call allocation of resources, where somebody is spending time, maybe money, and emotional energy on somebody else at the expense of the partner in the primary relationship. So that'll be the framework of what we're going to use as what emotional cheating could be for this show. The next part, I want to look at some evidence that indicates how social media has affected our society today. Now, I know a lot of things are affecting it, but social media for sure is being correlated to a lot of these next things I'm going to be mentioning to you. And it's important to show the landscape of what's going on so we can figure out if there's that much more emotional cheating going on today as compared to in the past. So let's look at these. There's a ton of them. So let's just do about 14 or 15, which is already probably too many. So number 1, through social media or since the social media age, people have a decreased ability to connect with other human beings. It has increased loneliness. People are less able to tolerate other people's points of view and differences. Number 4, people have a decreased ability to maintain and sustain meaningful relationships. Number 5, a decreased ability to interact properly with other human beings. Number 6, increase in anxiety. And number 7, an increase in hypervigilance, which is more of a PTSD response. Number 8, a decrease in emotional maturity. And number 9, a decrease in trust. Not just trust in other people, but a trust in themselves that they can deal with other human beings. Number 10, we have an increase in anger, an increase in combativeness, and an increase in controlling behaviors. This one's also extra interesting because if somebody is not on some type of self-development program, what they're going to do is instead of try to make themselves better to deal with the world, they're going to try to make the world change. So what they'll do is they'll try to control other people around them. And in regular terms, I guess you could say people are getting triggered all the time. We live in an extremely soft society where people who get triggered because they can't manage their emotions and feelings, because they're emotionally dysregulated due to their emotional immaturity, they try to change the people around them and they try to blame everybody else around them instead of upping their game, so to speak. Continuing. I didn't need to tell you this, but since the social media age, there's been a massive increase in narcissism and a massive decrease in empathy. There's also an increase in jealousy and an increase in envy. So let's take that now as a blueprint of what's going on in our society. And you don't have to be a mental health expert to understand that if that is the general type of feeling or the mental health of the average person going on in society today, we can see that they're going to have a lot of difficulty in relationships and being able to tell what is going on in a relationship, and they may have a lack of ability to be held accountable for their own actions. A little bit off the subject, but I saw this, everybody knows this, the football game where the guy in the Buffalo Bills had a heart attack on the field. And the first responders did a great job, and now he's recovering very well, from what I hear. 1 week later, there was somebody hurt on the field. The first responders, EMTs or physical therapists, whoever shows up first, they were actually pushed by one of the players. I think it was on the Green Bay Packers. Now, the disrespect there. So that guy, which I don't remember his name, he was thrown out of the game. Now, not only did he let his emotions get the best of him for some reason, why would you push somebody who's trying to help another person? But they had a video of him walking through the tunnel back to the locker room. And he was walking, he was crying, number one, and the way he was walking and acting with his body was like he was throwing a tantrum. Now, a person like this is going to say that everybody else is the problem. Why are you throwing a tantrum when you're wrong 100%? So if you talk to a guy like that, again, he doesn't have the emotional maturity to say, wow, I did a wrong thing. Look at these people around me. I should have respect. So he's just going to blame everybody else around him. And this is what happens in relationships now when you have a whole world that's profoundly sick and immature. So let's continue with this, because the next part of this would be, let's take a look at normal life before social media took hold. So let's talk about texting for a second. Now, texting is probably absolutely the lowest form of communication possible. There's no real connection there at all, and people tend to text all the time now. But back in the day, texting didn't exist. They had this other thing that they did, and you'll be totally surprised by it, depending on your age. If you can believe it, people would take the time to call somebody. Like, yes, they would call people. And what they would do is they would listen to their voice because it would connect them. And when you're talking to them and listening to them, they could each tell by the sound of their voice how they were doing. And they could actually communicate. Now, by today's standards, can you call people? You can. People don't. So that, again, shows you a level of immaturity. Nothing says, I don't really want to be around you or connect with you than texting somebody and leaving it out there instead of actually calling them. Here's something else that would shock people depending on your age. There's this other thing. People actually made a time and a date and a place to see them. Like, I know it's shocking, but back in the day, people used to actually see people. And they would have this thing called a relationship where they would communicate eyeball to eyeball, and you could see how they react to you. You could smile, you could hug them, you could hold their hand, you could shake their hand. You would actually have a human connection. It wouldn't be virtual. Now, if you put that in today's standards, sometimes a text that is absolutely the worst form of communication might be considered to be cheating, depending on who you're responding to. It's like, oh my God, it's a text. It's like such a big deal. Back in the day, people used to see each other all the time. They used to always have relationships with other people. They weren't isolated in one room texting every once in a while. Normal people back in the day used to have multiple relationships with people of both sexes. It would be normal to hang out with 5 people, 10 people, 20 people. It was normal. It was actual human connection. I don't know if you can believe that. There's something else that used to happen too a long time ago. It was this word that you really don't understand anymore. It's called friendship. People used to be real friends. They used to be able to share experiences with another human being or various human beings. Now, friendship means send me a thumbs up, follow me on Instagram. I saw this the other week when the Mr. Olympia was in town, and all these people were so robotic. It was actually kind of funny to me. They're like, oh my God, I've known you for so long. And it's like, no, you didn't. Nobody knew any of these people. They're like, I've been following you for years, and I feel like I know you. You maybe, but you don't. And this is what is taking the place of actual friendship today. So again, we have this increase in all of this emotional maturity, and people have no ability to even understand what actual relationships are. I mean, half the people back in the before social media, they had a better relationship with the person behind a deli counter at a supermarket than most people do with their significant other today, as far as I can see. Let's continue. Here's something for you. Men and women, they used to work together, 9-to-5 jobs. They worked together all day, every day. 15-minute breaks in between? Absolutely. They would have breaks together. They wouldn't disappear to each side like, oh, that person's of the opposite sex. I can't be around them. Oh no, I can't talk to them. No, it would be normal. Then you would have a lunch hour, and a lot of times you would go to the same place together, and it would be the same men and women who saw each other 40 hours a week would go and have lunch hour together. And on Fridays, they would go for happy hour at the bar that was very nearby. It didn't mean that it was something that it wasn't. Sometimes they were actually this thing, again, it's called friends. And I worked at a place, it was a factory, let's just say. And at the end of the summer, they would invite everybody on a boat trip. Men, women, boat trip. There was no weirdness there about, oh my God, you're spending time with so-and-so, or this person calls you. No, it was what was normal. Continuing, people went to school together. They walked to school together. They did their homework together. They worked out together. Some of the best training partners I've ever had were women. By today's standards, oh no, can't do that. That's emotional cheating. Why? We'll get to it in a second. People join clubs and organizations together. I remember I would train for a bodybuilding show, and there's certain things I didn't want to do because I was training for a bodybuilding show, and I would have a girlfriend, and she would join like a softball or a bowling league for a while to have some fun. And guess what? Men and women both did that. It wasn't like, oh my God, there's a bowler over on lane 10. There must be something going on, or they're talking about it, or she called somebody to make sure that the time was right of where they were going. Like, it was so stupid. Like, the level of maturity these days is like 0. Continuing. With that template of the way society used to be, let's compare that to what emotional cheating is. Again, let's go back to the beginning. Sharing privileged information and feelings with another person. Did everybody do that back in the day? Yes. Let's all say it together. Yes. Number 2, sharing a friendship, sharing interests, sharing mutual respect with somebody outside the primary relationship. Did people do that? Yes, not just with one person, but with many people. Yes, that's the answer. So back in the day, by today's standards, everybody was emotionally cheating. If you weren't, there's something wrong with you. Like, that's just normal social interaction back in the day. Let's continue. Allocation of resources. Spending time or emotional energy on somebody else at the expense of your partner. Yeah, sometimes. Right? Sometimes they wanted to go to a certain concert that you didn't like. Somebody wanted to do this that they didn't like. Somebody wanted to go fishing with these people. You had friends, and yes, on a boat there would be males and females. Oh my God. Like, that's very normal. People would contact each other. People would have friends, male and female friends. Normal. Okay? So now I want to look at some 3 interesting stats. Again, this will be most interesting for men, I believe, but it's for everybody, and then we could figure out what's emotional cheating and what's not. Okay, over 50% of women report being more emotionally connected to their best friend than their partner or spouse. Uh-oh, emotional cheating. More than 50% of women admit that they're more emotionally connected to somebody else. Let's look back at the emotional cheating. Sharing privileged information and feelings outside the relationship? Yes. Sharing a friendship and interest, mutual respect with somebody else outside the relationship? Yes. Spending time and emotional energy on somebody else? Yes. Guilty as charged. That's emotional cheating. But here's the thing. I personally don't believe that. What I'm trying to show you is the absolute ridiculousness and the folly in what's being served to people today on social media. It's stupid. Let's continue. Over 50% of women share their most intimate sex details with their best friend. So men out there, if you were sitting back one day thinking, does my girlfriend or my wife, does she tell her friends about the size of my penis or how long I last or when the last orgasm she had was? Listen, I'm going to tell you, don't worry about it. There's nothing to worry. You know why? Because more than 50% of the time, that's the answer. She does. They know. All of her friends know how big you are or small you are, how long you last or how long you don't last, when you have had trouble, and if she has orgasms from you. The evidence clearly states that. Again, let's go back. Emotional cheating. Is that sharing privileged information and feelings with somebody outside the monogamous relationship? Yes. Is it sharing friendship and interest with somebody else? Yes. Emotional energy? Yes. Guilty as charged. Now, do I believe that? No. I would never say that that's emotionally cheating. If women feel like they need to do that, I have no problem with that, and I would never control a woman to say you're not allowed to do that. Right? That's not a thing. Now, men don't do that. Men do kiss and tell with people they don't respect or like or want to spend, a lot of time with. They would never do that with a steady girlfriend or a steady partner or wife. That's just the way we are, but I don't expect women to act like men. It's okay. To me, do what you need to do, but I'm certainly not going to browbeat somebody to death saying that that's emotional cheating because I wouldn't do it. Again, I'm older, I'm from a different generation, and I do understand that people have different points of view than me. Continuing, here's something interesting. More than 50% of women preferred to spend more time with their dog than their partner during the pandemic. Okay, is that cheating? You can't say it's cheating because it's with a dog. However, let's put it up against our template. Sharing a friendship, sharing time and energy with somebody else or something else at the expense of your partner, I think that qualifies as cheating, actually. In the same way that if a woman is home and a guy says, I just want to go golfing all the time and I don't really want to be home on the weekends, you could say that that's cheating because if it's she relies on him for emotional connection and also to be around, and he's never there because he's always doing something else, you might be able to say that's an allocation of resources that's misspent. I believe you could say that. but I'm not in that relationship. That's for everybody else to figure out for themselves. So let's put all of this together. Back to the original question, and then I'm going to give you a straight answer, a fastball right down the middle. So the question is there an emotional cheating epidemic today in modern society? Here's your answer. There is absolutely no evidence to support an increase in emotional infidelity or cheating. There is a massive preponderance of evidence suggesting society is becoming more emotionally immature, and thereby normal, natural human behaviors are triggering people. And many people turn to social media to validate their immaturity instead of trying to strengthen their own character. So that's the answer. That's not just my opinion, but there's a lot of facts and evidence to back this up. If that hurts any feelings out there, I hope it wouldn't, but I can't stop that from happening. What I would prefer is people try to up their game and to become more emotionally mature. Because if we continue down this road of emotional immaturity and emotional dysregulation, that we keep trying to be so weak, that we live in a victim society, that we're trying to change everybody else because we're unwilling to do the hard work, I can't imagine where this country is going to be in 10 years from now. Hopefully it doesn't go down that road. My name is Joe Peroni. This is the Rise Above Project. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Thank you.